Hey, Elsa here. Remember that little river table that I tried to make a while back? And I was doing it because I want to make a big river table, but I thought, you know what? I should practice first. So I took some pieces of myrtlewood and I tried it. Well, it was ugly. So I cut that piece of resin out and smoothed up the wood, and I'm doing it over again. I'm gonna put resin along the edge before I do a pour inside. So I am also using a different resin this time. I'm using TotalBoat resin. And if you go to TotalBoat.com and put in size corner, they'll give you a 10% discount on any purchases that you make for TotalBoat resin, which I thought was really cool. I did this hoping to reduce any micro bubbles that might form when I pour it in between the wood, but I ended up coloring the resin, so I think if there were micro bubbles, they wouldn't have shown up anyway. I set the pieces on their edges, and when I did that, the resin dripped down the sides and the drips hardened and made it so that the pieces wouldn't lay flat. So I ended up sanding those so that I could put them into this rectangular thing that you can see here, so I could pour the resin in there. And then I put some clamps to hold the wood down too, so the resin wouldn't make the pieces float away. And put them down like that. Okay, I did use cocoa again because I just think it's cool to have a chocolate table. So I used denatured alcohol to make the cocoa thinner before I added it to the resin. And I added a little pearlizing powder to that also. And man, I really liked the way that looked. Ooh, pretty. Ooh, I like it. So I poured it into the void and it looked so nice, but it also acted funny and I couldn't control the swirls. I figured out that I had used too much denatured alcohol, but it did set up, which was a relief. And of course I wasn't liking it later, so I decided this time that I was going to just use pearlizing powder with the resin, no cocoa. Add it to the rest. And I poured it right over the brown, which was just a bit tacky to the touch. And I used the torch to get off those top bubbles. And those top bubbles are different than the micro bubbles that can be inside, which we aren't seeing because of the color. Ooh, I really like how that's looking. Yay! Yay! After that set, I poured one more layer of that resin that only has the pearlizing powder in it. Ooh, yeah. Whoa, is that pretty or what? And I had started with that different color, which looks pretty cool on the bottom, but whoa. So I'm gonna run it through the planer. I had to make quite a few passes through the planer, but it worked great and it looked pretty cool. Almost like the chocolate side better. And the last time I did this table, I sanded it all the way up to 1500. And I never got that resin to look great. And I tried a bunch of different things with compounds and all that stuff, and the resin just never came back, bounced back. So what I've discovered since then is to just put another little layer of resin over the resin, and then boom, and it bounces back to its original prettiness. So what I did was I sanded just to 250. So I cleaned off the board and then I put some blue tape around to keep it from pooling on the back side. Then I mixed up 3 pumps of resin and I poured it on the table, and I used a tongue depressor to move the resin around, and once I got it everywhere, I used my gloved hand to run it over the edges. After this setup, I did the same thing to the other side, except instead of placing tape around the edges, I just wiped off the underside every 15 minutes for about an hour or so. And I did torch off the surface bubbles after each pour. So this little river table turned out awesome! I love it! Yay! Finally, it looks nice! Yeah! And the chocolate, I wasn't liking the chocolate. So then I started pouring this white, and now I like the chocolate side. but I like the white side too. So yeah. Yeah. And now, I want to make this into a table. And so I went to my brother and he gave me a lesson in welding. He told me to watch this video of this guy welding, and the guy, I tried to watch him and it was just all over my head. I needed more basic stuff. So I bought Welding for Dummies and I read that. And then I had the class with my brother, and husband came too. And husband hadn't welded for years, so he did one bead and my brother's like, you're fine, you don't need help at all. Which was really cool because that means he can help me too. So I am going to make a table for this. Yeah! So I cut the pieces of metal tubing to the size I wanted using this awesome metal cutting saw with a special blade. Oh man, it cuts so nice. And it's a blade we heard about from April Wilkerson. So my brother told me that I need to make sure my metal is really clean. So I went over all of the pieces of metal with a sanding type disc on my grinder. Then I use these metal arrows to hold things in place, and man, they're great. Yeah, I really like those. I really recommend those. I forgot to say they are magnetic metal arrows and they hold really strong. And I had to use a mallet to position the pieces. And once I had them in position, I started welding them together. And then I didn't have pieces that were long enough because I was using metal that was left over from when husband made all the railings for the kids' clubhouse. And so I decided to take smaller tubing and slide it into the bigger tubing, and it made like a design. So I just went with that. And I've only practiced welding a few times before, so my welds aren't real pretty yet. And I decided to grind them down where they were really, really, really bad. And I did ask my brother, why do you care about how your welds look since you can grind them down? And he said to me, yes, but are you a welder or are you a grinder? Right now I guess I'm a grinder. But I hope to graduate to a welder soon. Then I added some little pieces so the wood can sit inside that outer frame. Then I welded a smaller rectangle for the foot, and then I welded together the long piece that connects the foot to the top. And you know what? I didn't have a long enough piece again. So I did the same thing, where I took smaller pieces, would put it on the insides. So I repeated the design that I did for the tabletop. So yay! That worked. So I was welding things that were, you know, flat like that, and now I'm trying to weld at a 90-degree angle, and I couldn't get my weld to make them stick. I wasn't welding it right. So husband gave me a little lesson. And the welder was popping and stuff, and so husband adjusted it, and that made it much better. And then he showed me how to make a nice, you know, back and forth type of a deal to attach those. And it helped me out a lot.
Oh, I see it. Okay, then you're good.
Hey!
I think you went a little fast, but yeah, see, you can tell you go fast because see the little pockets here?
Yeah.
See how it's smooth there?
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Okay, well, do you think that's gonna hold?
Yeah, oh, that'll hold.
Yay! Cool.
Now, just turn this like that. This is ideal. When you have something like this,
yeah,
it's ideal because then you can just do this.
Okay.
I'm gonna cut that a little bit because
that last one I did from the bottom up, I was just too fast. Okay.
Yeah, you're just a little fast.
Ready?
Sure.
Is this the right angle?
Yeah, you're fine. Just put it like at 45.
Ooh! That one's good, huh?
Yeah, it turned out pretty good.
Yay!
Good job. You get better at it, dear. It takes time. You know, I did it for years.
Yeah.
And it took me just a little bit to get it back, because it's like anything. Once you learn it,
yeah,
you just figure it out. It's just a different technique with the wire weld. That's all for me.
But it was still ugly. So once it was all done, I ground off, you know, all those ugly welds, and then I cleaned it all off, and then I painted it with enamel black paint. Then I put little felt pads where the tabletop is going to sit. And tried it out.
Well, you know it's going to fit that way. That's cool.
That is, that's neat.
So, the table. I love it. I love it. And so it's just about right, I think. Yeah. And then if I want the other side to show, I just turn it over like that. Yeah. Little feet protected. So these little holes here, I kind of like it open like this. But I could get some little plugs to put on there. But I like it open, I think. Yeah. I'll have to put some little feet on the bottom so it doesn't scratch up the floor in the house. So thanks for joining me, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Bye!